everybody. Today's guest is Demetrius D. Parker. Now, by day, Demetrius is founder, Pragmatical Solutions Leader for the Trust Leadership Collective. And we'll ask Demetrius about this, but not before we discuss his parallel life as a musician, actor, and director. Now, wow, that's a lot. But since you can only showcase one talent per show, this talent show episode, we're going to focus on that silky baritone of yours, D. Is that all right?
All right, all right.
All
If
right.
you
If we're lucky, we'll get you to hum a few bars. And if you don't want to hum a few bars, we'll visit a few bars. Whatever works for you.
all
Welcome,
right.
welcome.
Thank you very much. That's good.
It is great to have you. Thank you so much for being on this, our very first episode of the talent show. And I got to tell you, I lied a little bit. I mean, I do want to ask about the Trust Leadership Collective. Okay. And your role there, what you do. And, tell us a little bit about the strategy that's rooted in pragmatic change, if you will.
Yeah, no, no. Actually, thank you for asking that question. So, pragmatic change, all my life, the way I have come at life as a whole, even as a student, right, and as a young adult, I was one to always challenge things. In some ways, I even self-label myself as a disruptor, right? So coming in and shaking things up. But I've also always found that when I do it, I kind of have a solution in mind. Like it's not just shaking things up for the sake of shaking things up, but I have a thought, an idea, a strategy, a solution to whatever it is that we're doing. And so that pragmatic change, I actually kind of uh, coined a term in some ways of pragmatical. And what that is I come at things from this pragmatic way of we're going to get something done. And at the same time, that radical piece of I'm going to shake things up. And so that's kind of how I come at the work that I do, as well as just my philosophy in life and the way that I think is this pragmatical way of operating, which is why I call myself a pragmatical solutions leader. I was like, I'm going to come into a space bringing a solution, understanding that we're probably not going to do things the way we've always done it, but we're also going to change them in a way that's still sustainable. And what does that sustainability look like?
Yeah, and it seems to me that a lot of times when um, we'll talk about your singing here in a second because that really is a lot of times can be on the fly, right? Things happen. The band behind you does something maybe unexpected, and you have to think on the fly. I'm sure you have to think on the fly with pragmatic change.
Yes, yes, yes. I was thinking about you made me think about a time I was with a band when I was actually in the military, and we were doing a show, and they came to me and said, D, we want you to lead a few more songs. And actually, we want you to choose a country song to lead. And they gave me, and this is going to show, it's going to date me a bit, but they gave me a box of cassettes. And they said, take this back to your room and find a country song that you like that speaks to you. And then the band's going to learn it, and we're going to perform it in the next show, which was literally 3 days from that time. Right. So I had 3 days to learn this country song. Um, and I remember it was Forever and Ever Amen by Randy Travis.
Right.
And I remember going, and just before the show, I was like, hey, look, I for some reason I get stuck after the first verse. So I'm gonna need you all to kind of come in, like the background singers are like, kind of come in with me and lead me in, and then I can get to the second verse, and then I can do this. And we end up singing the chorus about 8 times because I they forgot to do that, and I forgot how to get into it, and so it was very interesting. But with that song, like always is a big memory for me of I'm gonna love you forever, forever and ever, amen. As long as old men sit and talk about the weather, as long as old women sit and talk about old men, If you wonder how long I'll be faithful, I'll be happy to tell you again that I'm gonna love you forever and ever, forever and ever. Amen.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let me tell you, I did not, that's something I didn't see coming. And that was just really right on the money. I mean, you captured that spirit and absolutely fantastic. I mean, when did you discover you were a baritone and really there was no going back?
No, no. I discovered that was a baritone. So typically when you're a young male, right? You growing up and you have the voice change, and it's one of those things that it's just awkward for about probably anywhere from a week to a month or so, where it's just cracking and everything else, and you're
Yeah.
just all
Mine still changes off and on. I don't know what the heck's going on with me.
over. Well, for me, it happened overnight. Like I literally woke up one day and my mom said, Demetrius. And I said, yeah. And she goes, are you sick? I go, no. And she goes, well, what is up with your voice? And I was like, I don't know. And then I started crying because I realized my voice has changed. Like it's not changing, it has changed overnight.
Wow.
And now I'm a baritone. And if you think about at that time, I was in junior high school. So even as a baritone at that time, I was even pretty much going from either baritone or bass, even for my age range.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so
And
that
how
was
old are you
that
at
was
this point? How old?
I was in seventh or eighth grade. So you're looking about 12 or 13.
Right.
12 or 13 is where I was. Um and not happy.
Yeah.
Because all the lead stuff was for the tenors and the second tenors. Like
Right.
there's no leads in R&B music, right? In R&B music, there was no lead necessarily for the bass and baritones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean, there were a few guys, right? Like Barry White.
but so Barry White, Isaac Hayes,
Yeah.
Jeff Osborne, James Ingram. Honestly, someone who's actually in my age who actually kind of helped me to also embrace the baritone was Johnny Gill at that time, right? But if you think about Johnny Gill was probably the only one that was young and a baritone. All the baritones were these older men from the 70s and 60s. And
Right.
so that's
Right.
not the music that we were necessarily doing in school. Um, so yeah, so it was, to be honest with you, it was a little traumatic when it first happened. But
Yeah. I'm guessing the guys you just mentioned are the guys you learned, maybe admired and learned from the most growing up.
oh yes, oh yeah, like Johnny Gill, like I said, Johnny Gill, and Johnny Gill's from Washington D.C., which is where
Hmm.
I'm from.
Yep.
Shout out to DC, anyone watching from DC. And yeah, so Johnny Gill and Stacey Lattisaw and just their music. So my, you sure look good tonight. After all this time, slip on your red dress, right? And so
Hmm.
coming from that space and just feeling him singing with that heart and that tone, um, really showed me that what, it's okay, right? I can still be a part, still sing and enjoy singing and do some lead stuff from time to time in that range. And so it was really good to have someone in my age group singing in that tone.
Sure. Yeah, that makes complete sense. We're talking with Demetrius Parker. Demetrius, he goes by D sometimes, Demetrius D. Parker. He is the founder and pragmatical solutions leader at Trust Leadership Collective. But as you can see and hear, quite the singer. You also act and you direct. Now, is that for film or the stage or both?
So it was mostly for film. I did some stage. Stage wasn't necessarily for me. As we talk about change, I'm one of those people, I like change, and stage for me, didn't give enough change when, the stage would typically have, stage plays would have a run of a few nights. And I'm like, I'm doing the same thing every night.
Yeah.
And so that was hard for me. But I found film and improv more suitable to my liking. And so I directed improv troupe and had the opportunity to do that. And then I acted and produced a few independent films and even got to direct and was the casting director for several independent films.
Tremendous. Now is that back home in the Washington D.C. area or in Colorado where you are now? Or in Los Angeles?
So that was back in the Washington D.C. area. When I moved to Colorado, no offense to Colorado, but the scene was a lot different here. This is more of a commercial space than it is a independent film space. Even though I think that's starting to change a little bit right now, they're trying to get that off the ground.
Right.
But DC was where I got to do a lot of that on the East Coast, and then I would bounce back sometimes over to the West Coast as well.
Yeah.
And folks there.
When did you first start singing professionally, Demetrius?
Yeah. So professionally, I guess there's two ways to answer that question. So one, as I said, I got the opportunity and privilege to sing while I was in the United States Army. They had a kind of a contest of sorts that I called the Army Soldier Show, and I got chosen to perform in that show. And if we ever have a time to sit down, I can tell you about the debacle of how that came to be. But I got chosen to sing in that show, and we got to tour and go to army bases. And so if you think about that, that was a professional paid gig, right? Because I
Yeah.
was a soldier getting paid
Yeah.
to sing to other soldiers. So I guess that would be the first. And then later, once I got out of the military, I was doing modeling, and I had some friends, and they wanted to put together a group. They knew that I liked to sing, so we put together a group called Slam, which was an acronym for Soulful, Loving, Ambitious Men. And so then we put that group together, and with that group, I had the privilege and blessing partnering with Regina Bell and doing some shows. And we got to open for Miss Patti LaBelle. And so that was really cool, and had kind of a small tour that we did, but unfortunately, if you know the life of groups, if anyone's seen the New Edition story or the Temptation story or any of those group stories, there's a lot of up and downs when it comes to groups and personalities and all that. And so even though I'm really good friends with all those guys still today, I had other aspirations, which was in the film space and things like that. So we broke up. I went the film direction. They got back together a few years later, and now they're actually still doing shows today. And they are named, if it's okay for me to give them a shout out, that
Absolutely.
the group is now called Debonair. And it's Debonair Music, and actually to this day they're still doing some things and partnering with Regina Bell and things of that nature, and doing really good things in the music business, and keeping that soulful tone alive. And
Yeah.
so I love
That's
what they're doing with that.
that's great. And soulful tones. I love that. And if you had to pick a genre right now, I mean, what would you say is the genre that you're most singing today?
The one that I'm most singing, honestly, is probably still R&B,
Yeah.
old school R&B, right? That neo soul, that you know, yeah, just that soulful sound. To me, that music really lent itself to my style of music, my voice style, and just where my range is. Even though folks tell me I have a pretty decent range, the comfort space is right there in that space.
It seems like you would be the perfect choice to sing the national anthem. And the reason I say that, because you know the story, you know where I'm going with this, right? It's very rangy. It's a very rangy tune, and a lot of people have to start really low to hit those couple of high notes near the end.
Yes.
First of all,
Well,
have you sung the national anthem? And am I is that sort of have you been
no,
asked to do that?
it's funny because I have, and just recently, and when I say recently, like 2 or 3 months ago, I was at a friend's house and they got this new board game, and it's a board game about music and all this other stuff, right? And it's there's like different challenges in it, and one of the challenges that I got was I had to sing the national anthem on the spot. And I think one of the ladies she recorded it, but it's oh say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, right? And just as you say, like the range and just where you have to go with that song
Yeah,
and to
it's
sing
a
it. I
challenge.
remember, I remember sitting there and they were looking at me and I was like, I gotta sing this right now. Usually that's a song that you want to prep yourself for.
Yeah,
Um,
we've seen. I mean, national television, and you've seen
the
as
key
many
thing again,
disasters as triumphs. I think with that, right? It has been. It is
uh,
definitely a. It's a
yes,
challenge, but
yes.
I'm sure you knocked it out of the park. No pun intended, as it's usually heard at baseball. Um, Let me ask you this: your singing, how does it inform, or does it inform your work as a pragmatic solutions leader? Is there anything maybe that you take away that helps you make your work more effective?
Honestly, I would say in some ways there definitely some parallel, and with how that comes across for me is that ability to be agile, to be in the moment, and honestly to come from the heart. And I would probably say that's the one of the biggest pieces is that what I've been told from others is that when I'm doing my work and when I'm singing, folks say I can tell you're really singing from the heart, like you're really putting your all into it to the point where even here in these short little snippets that I've given, there's sweat that comes up, right? Because
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
when people, I don't think that some folks who don't sing um don't realize the energy and the muscles that you use when you're singing. For me, I think that's where that parallel really is that when I do my work, I'm doing this work because I started the company because I chose to, right? I chose to be in this space. I chose to do the work. And it's the same thing when I'm singing, right? I'm choosing those songs and I want folks to feel something at the end. Um, I want you to feel something, whether that's joy, whether that's sadness. And other times I don't even know what that thing is going to be, but I want you to feel something.
well, I think that's why people, you know, go to concerts, and of any kind. They want to feel something, or they want to be moved. And I think, we talk about this a lot, as AI continues to be on the forefront, and it's composing music now and everything else. I still say, and I hope this for all musicians, including myself, I'm a jazz pianist, but I still think there's the human element, right? Of people wanting to go out there and seeing other human beings and interacting. I don't think they want to just go and fill a theater and see a computer on stage. I just, it's not the same thing.
No, no, no. And again, I embrace what AI is and what AI can bring to
Right.
our society. And at the same time, there is, especially when it comes to entertainment, that human element, and even in a workspace, the human element of just that piece of being human and the connection, right? Again, are we connecting? Are we connecting? And that term that we use, do you feel me? Right? Do you
Yeah.
feel me?
Yeah.
And that's important, in music. I think if you said, and you talk about you being a jazz pianist and a musician, and I think about anytime I hear someone playing, the feeling that I get especially when they're really good, right? Someone play a nice saxophone or piano, and you're just like, wow. There's no feeling like that.
No, no, it's moving, and I've been inspired by many artists of all kinds of all styles of music. And
Yes.
the one common thread is am I feeling something? You know, it's now I know that you have some big changes in business, social, even cultural landscape that have changed the way you work. I mean, things are always evolving. Um,
Yes.
it's important to be agile and spontaneous. Um, and we talked about how music maybe informs some of that, but as an artistic person, as an artist, um, what's your perspective on these changes in your work?
I would say in my work, uh, again, and you kind of touched on this, change is constant, right? I just actually finished doing a workshop today with a group of folks, and that's what I was talking about was is constant. It's up to you to decide. Like every morning when I wake up, I say growth is the goal, right? And what that means is I have to leave some space. I have to leave some space to learn something new. Like I have to understand and have the humility to know that I don't know everything and leave some space for me to grow. And with that, when I grow, no matter how minute that growth may be, that is change, right? So that is change. And so I know I heard someone say people don't change, people grow. And I believe it's both. I believe we grow because we change, right? And we change because we grow. I think they're symbiotic
Yeah.
in that sense. And so every day it's different, and I have to, be aware of that. And the same thing is when you're doing music, right? I might go in one day and there's one band and there's a drummer who plays this way, and I go in another day and there's a drummer and he plays a little different. And even though they're both drumming, there's a different feel in how and like just how it's going to sound and how it's going to feel. And then as a musician, I have to find my space, right? Find who I am and how do I fit into however it is that they're playing the music.
It's an evolution, and it's also thinking, I think, on your, like you said, you react it, you think on your feet, and you've got it one drummer one day, a different drummer another day, a different work associate one day, and right, and
Yeah,
it's that adjusting.
especially the work that I do. Just sharing really quickly, like
Yeah.
I do client work, right? So every client is different. Like every client, even though they're coming to me for what it is that I bring, they still want to have it their flavor, right? They're like, I want this, but can you tweak it to look like this? Or can you tweak it to look like that? And you have to have enough, again, humility to say, sure, right? Like
Yeah.
you're the client, I can give you what you want and still be me, right? And still feel genuine in what it is that I'm providing.
Absolutely. Our guest is Demetrius D. Parker. Call him D. And he is by day founder, Pragmatical Solutions Leader for the Trust Leadership Collective. And when he steps into a phone booth and puts this cape on, or his hat in this case, he is musician, actor, director D. Parker, and that's pretty cool. I like having that different life, and
Yeah.
seeing that other side. Mentorship. I wanted to talk about that just briefly. And you've always had mentors, people who help and inspire you. How important is mentorship in your work, and the mentorship you've received coming up, and
Oh, wow.
what you provide today?
Yeah, no, thank you. Wow. Mentorship is, I probably should grab my tissues. I have tissues back. Because mentorship, honestly, it's one of those things that it hits at the heart. And I think it's so important in our lives today. And I think about the folks who have been there for me. Um, like I just did an article recently, an interview for an article in a local website magazine that we have here. And they asked that question. And I thought about all the folks that have been there for me in multiple ways, starting not just my family, of course, who, you hope it's going to be there, but not even everyone has that privilege of their family truly supporting and being there for them. Um, but I would say from a mentor sake is I really think about honestly some of my first teachers who would pull me aside and say, Demetrius, you're different. And sometimes that different was good. And sometimes they were like, and they would tell me, I want you to lean into that. Like, don't let the bullying, don't let the teasing and all those things get in the way. Like, stay who you are. And I am so grateful for those words because I did. I stood in growing up in the hood of DC and honestly being bullied and being called names and fighting a lot because of the way that I wanted to show up in the world. And the fact that, I would be that person in class that would always raise my hand and always had a thought that I wanted to share. But having those teachers there at an early age in my life to say, do what you're doing, honestly, to have neighbors to say that same thing, like, you're going to do good things, continue on the path that you're on. Um, and then just throughout life, I feel is that if you carry positive energy, you will attract positive people. Uh, and so that's what I try to give back. And constantly, I have people reach out to me, some people that are referred to me, and some people who just kind of find me from wherever they find me and reach out and want to talk about, either the entertainment business or, the work that I do or the workspaces and how they may want to change their careers. And I find a way to take the time to share whatever knowledge it is that I have with them to provide that mentorship, even if it's for a moment, right? And I think that's something else that when people think about mentorship, they think about that it has to be something that's long term, and it can be, and a lot of times it is, but a lot of times it could just be those moments. Like just recently over this weekend, just to share with you, Tom, I was at a comedy club, and in this comedy club, it's one of those places I went by myself. My family were out of town. And so I went to the comedy club by myself. They sat me with this young lady who I'd never met before in my life. We started to talk, and it found out that she was trying to get into a space where I had tons of connections. She was new into her career. And right then and there, I started sharing my knowledge with her and gave her my LinkedIn connection. And I plan on being a mentor for this young person as much as I can be. But even that moment, she was like, wow. She's like, I never thought I would get this at a comedy club. Like, this is not what I came here for. And
Yeah.
so I just think it's important for people to understand how powerful they can be if they step in that power and share their knowledge.
Well, it's a wonderful thing you're doing. And, you know, why don't you let folks know? We want to ask you one other question, but why don't you let folks know where they can find you?
So thank you very much for that. And right now, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Demetrius Parker. I'm currently working on my website. So, but you can find me Demetrius Parker on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email at info at trustleadershipcollective.org. That's info at trustleadershipcollective.org. Or you can give me a call, 720-805-7968. I will actually pick up the phone. You will get a person that will pick up the phone.
Wow. Geez,
I
I,
know.
I haven't heard about that in a few years. That's pretty good.
You
Actually,
know,
get
you
a real human being on the other line. How about that? What'll they think of next? um, hey Demetrius, if you had one skill that you wish you had, what would it be?
uh-huh. Okay. Remember I told you I like to push the envelope, right? So can I have two?
Sure, take two.
All right. So love to sing. I write lyrics. I write poetry. I cannot sight read. I do everything by ear. do everything, but I would love to be able to sight read.
I know somebody like that.
I would love to be able to do that. And with that, then I would also, I feel that if I could do that, then I would be able, I would love to be able to play the piano. Like, I would love to be able to play, like, and then when I mean play, I mean actually play. Like right now, I'll turn on the recording thing and I'll go, okay, I know it's this.
Yeah.
Do the little finger thing, right? And then record whatever chords that it is I'm trying to get, and then come back and redo it, right? But I cannot just play, and I am so in awe of folks who can do that.
Well, I can tell you from the experience I do have sitting at a piano, it is a lifelong journey as singing is, and you learn something if you're lucky, and hopefully this is the takeaway is you learn something new every day. Am I a little better than I was yesterday? Did I learn a little more than I knew yesterday? And
Love
that
it.
to me is success. But that's a great thought, and I appreciate your a skill that you wanted. There's time, Demetrius. You got time. You could do it. I'm telling
Good.
you. Hey, let's. You know how when you go on a show, they play you out. The band will strike up
Yes.
a tune.
Okay.
Why don't you sing us out a little? Give us a
Oh
little a
wow.
little snippet of a tune that, and maybe an old R&B favorite of yours or something like that. Let us know.
All
Would
right. Okay. Here's one that typically, you know how when you're a singer or comedian, people find that out and like on the spot, they're like, sing something. You're a singer or you're a comedian. Tell me a joke,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Be funny.
Right? Be funny. And so here's a song that's typically I would say, or a snippet of a song that's a go-to for me. That hopefully folks feel is like showcases the sweet spot of where I like to sing, which is come bring me your sweetness. Now there's you, there is no weakness. Woman, don't you know with you, I'm born again. Others have not hope and say with none. Reach into this world in need of one. Come show me your kindness, 'cause in your arms I know I'll find it. Woman, don't you know with you, I'm born again. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, that's where we got to leave it. Uh, I mean, what are you gonna do? How do we top that, folks? It's beautiful, just beautiful. Demetrius, thank you so much
Hey,
for coming
thank you
on, being
all.
our first guest. You were just absolutely wonderful. We will would love to have you on again. And there you go, folks. Our very first talent show. And who better to christen this show than Demetrius Parker, an absolutely beautiful uh, uh, spirit, person, and singer for sure, and many, many other things. Demetrius Parker, our guest. This was the Talent Show, the podcast that shines a light on the hidden or little known talent of the people you work with and their unique paths of discovery, learning, mastery, and growth. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Tom Alexander. We'll see you again soon.